Fox News is now streaming live on Fox One. When it matters most, turn to the voices you trust. We go beyond the headlines, bringing you the stories you won't hear anywhere else. Live coverage, sharp analysis, real perspective. At home or on the go. Stay connected when it counts. Stream Fox News on Fox One. Download today.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You know, this past weekend, I did, and I do, what my wife and I do, for some particular reason, I find I go through weird patterns, and I never watch cable TV, never watch TV per se. Maybe a little Netflix, maybe something along those lines, but not really. But I have found myself back in the saddle again regarding watching old game shows. There's one network or channel called Buzzer. I think it's Buzzr or something. It's shows I've never even heard of, but it reminds me of, it was a simpler time, and people were very, very smart. And then in various iterations of this, I came into What's My Line, and there was a person on What's My Line who was very, very smart, and her name is Dorothy Kilgallen. And when I mention, I can tell right away if you're a member of the team. If I mention Dorothy Kilgallen, you say, "Oh, whatever happened?" Then you know you're on the team. You're a member of the conspiratorium. Because what's so interesting, in our culture, we have people who just up and disappear or are ostensibly either killed or suicided. And we just become real when it comes to obvious problems attendant to the cause of death. Did you know that the number one radio format, well, I shouldn't say that, podcasting, one of the highest ones, is, of course, true crime. And true crime is some of the lamest. In fact, the number one show, I think, if it's the one I'm thinking of, is two girls. They sound like they're 10, and they ooh and ah over nothing. And they just repeat themselves, and they really don't get to anything in particular. But the best true crime is what's happening right here. And what we do in this country is we just forget. When they tell you, don't pay attention anymore, look the other way, we just do it. Okay. Nothing to see here. All righty. And Dorothy Kilgallen was not just some, media personality. Oh, nay. She was a very sharp, very smart, a relentless journalist, syndicated columnist, read by millions in a day when people read, when syndicated columnists meant something, because now we're just awash at every version of analyst and, commentator. We're just awash, a brew in this. But she was serious. She was a panelist on the hit show What's My Line, and more importantly, she was one of the few mainstream reporters, who openly challenged the official narrative surrounding the assassination of John Kennedy. Now, that may not seem like much to you, but then it was huge. And that's where things start to get uncomfortable. And this was a different time then, my friend. This is when the mob was hot, when they were powerful, when people did not brook that particular type of recalcitrance. How dare you question this? If you think it's bad today, oh no, not like you can imagine there, then it'll get you killed. Here, you might be, shelved, as it were. Now, Dorothy Kilgallen, again, was relentless. She didn't just follow stories, she chased them into places others avoided, and she knew. She was like the old days of Jack Anderson and other great reporters. And in the mid-1960s, she was chasing one story in particular, the John Kennedy case. Now, she believed something about the case that didn't add it up. Not privately, not quietly, but openly. She didn't mince words. She said it, she wrote it, and more importantly, she acted on it. She required your attention and secured something almost no one else had, a private interview with Jack Ruby, the man who silenced, theoretically, yes, I guess, the only official suspect. That alone put her in a rare territory. Think about that. But what she hinted at already made people pay attention. She suggested there was more to the story, and more than what the public had been told. Now, the Jack Ruby story was incredible. Jack Rubenstein, part of the mob, part of the Carlos Marcello connection of New Orleans, and a guy who was so mobbed up and who said, listen to this, he said he wanted to take out Lee Harvey Oswald because he didn't want Jackie Kennedy to have to testify. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, that she would have to testify. And then came November 1965. She was found dead in her Manhattan townhouse. And the official explanation is quick and clean. An accidental combination of alcohol and barbiturates. Case closed, move on, nothing to see here, move along. An accidental combination. Except nothing about the scene feeds clean, as they say. She is not in her own bedroom. She's fully made up. Listen to this. She's fully made up, still wearing false eyelashes, as though she had just come home from an engagement and was not preparing for bed at all. It looks like someone, she looked, I guess, less like someone winding down for the night and more like somebody interrupted in the middle of it. And then comes the detail that refuses to sit quietly. The work that she had been doing, her notes, her research, everything, especially anything connected to her interview with Jack Ruby, was gone. Not misplaced, not later discovered, gone. Of course, today things would be so much different because you would have different clouds and you could store things and you could not take the notes, but those were different times. And friends said that she was energized and focused and convinced that she was on the verge of something really big. Not drifting, not unraveling, not, behaving like someone about to accidentally, quote, end her own life. She had repeatedly told colleagues that she was close to blowing the case open. And that's not casual talk, especially from her. That's a reporter signaling a breakthrough. And then there is the investigation, or what passes for one. For a nationally known journalist, a figure with enormous visibility, the follow-up feels rather thin. No aggressive digging, no sustained pressure, just a conclusion, delivered and accepted, and that's it. So people start asking questions. Why was she in a bedroom that wasn't hers, that she never used? Why was she there almost propped up, almost like staged? Who had access to her home that night? Where did her research go? And who would benefit? Cui bono, cui prodest. Who benefits from the disappearing? And what exactly did she learn from Jack Ruby that never made it to print? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all. Who stood to lose if she told the world what she knew? And there are those who say it was a tragic event, a mix of substances, a mistake that ended her life. And of course, other people are going to say she was a drunk or she was this or she was that. Other friends of hers said, oh, no, not at all. In fact, the explanation is always there. It's always available, but it doesn't quite quiet the unease. It doesn't explain the missing material. And it doesn't explain the timing. See, it doesn't explain why a story so big seemed to vanish along with her. And that was it. And because when a reporter says a story will not die as long as there is a real journalist alive, and that's what she said, and then that reporter dies suddenly, well, under circumstances that don't quite add up, people remember. And they keep asking. And what did Dorothy Kilgallen find? Why?
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.